Hi, everyone, and welcome to Our Disabled Future, a series where disabled voices lead the way. I'm your host, Nico, and it is a good day for disability inclusion. Each day during Disability Pride Month and beyond, I'm amplifying real disabled stories, where we are, where we want to go, and how the heck we're going to get there. Together, I hope. Today, I'm thrilled to be joined by my old friend, Christi. Let's dive in. Hi, Christi. Thank you for joining me.
Absolutely. I'm glad to be here.
Tell us about yourself and about your disabled life.
Well, I'm a writer. I've been published in multiple venues such as hearinglikeme.com, the mighty Last Stanza Poetry Journal, Nothing Ever Happens in Fox Hollow, Volume 2, and last winter, the book I was working on travel to Cameroon finally came out. It's called Seasons of Sisterhood. It's co-authored by four other people alongside myself. It talks about how a journey through Cameroon changed all of us in 2016. And with my disabled journey, oh boy, that has been a bumpy ride. And my disabled journey last year, it turned my whole world upside down, not just in terms of how to care for myself, but in terms of how I identify too. For a long time, I thought I knew what Ehlers-Danlos syndrome was. I was part of all the online chronic illness Facebook groups, and people were talking about Ehlers-Danlos all the time. They were talking about how they'd pop their joints just rolling over in bed. They would be on so much pain medication just to get through the day, all the therapies, and then there was the POTS and the dysautonomia and all of these things that I didn't understand. I just thought, well, okay, that's not me. I'm not in significant pain. I'm not in any of these terrible things. So I'm going to be a really good ally to everybody with EDS and the chronic illness community. That came back to bite me big time last year in 2024. Actually, no, I should rewind it back a little bit and say 2023, because the thing that really kicked off my diagnostic journey to Ehlers-Danlos was getting diagnosed with Nutcracker syndrome. Have you heard of it? It's a vascular compression syndrome where your left renal vein is compressed between the abdominal aorta and the superior mesenteric artery. The backflow either goes right into your kidney, messing up the function, or down into the gonadal vein, causing pelvic varicose veins. I ended up with the latter, and I've been showing signs of it since I was 15. But the doctors were all like, oh, it's those varicose veins are not a big deal. Even when they told me I had pelvic congestion syndrome, there were doctors who said to me, oh, pelvic congestion syndrome is just a BS diagnosis we make up so patients feel better about themselves. And all the while, I'm having severe pelvic pain that if I wasn't taking 3 to 5 Aleve a day and chasing it with 4 shots of espresso, I couldn't get out of bed. I had no idea how much I was self-medicating until I got diagnosed. And when I quit the caffeine at the very high level, instead of doing 4 to 5, I got down to 1 to 2. A whole bunch of stuff came out. And even in the period when I tried to quit altogether, that was when we figured out I actually did have POTS and dysautonomia. The caffeine was masking them with vasoconstriction. I didn't realize how intensely I was depending on it until I quit. Then everything fell into place, and the cardiologist said, it's not a matter of whether you have Ehlers-Danlos or not, but what type of Ehlers-Danlos do you have? I've been determined to have the hypermobile type, but considering that most of my hypermobility is in my fingers, like this way and even this way, they thought it was the vascular kind. The vascular kind, oh, you do not want that one. Vascular fragility and fragility of the more hollow organs like the uterus and the bowels, it causes them to rupture and tear and perf, and it causes the average life expectancy to be age 48. I'm thankfully hypermobile, but there was enough going on with my vascular system and my hypermobility that they were like, we got to get you checked out for the vascular. It has been quite a journey. And this is the superficial explanation, too. There were signs of this going all the way back to when I was an infant, and they all got missed due to things like, oh, this is just a kid being a kid. She'll outgrow these infections eventually. Oh, she's just clumsy. Oh, she's just making it up to get out of class, and all of that stuff. And it's like, ugh, if we want to talk about our disabled future, has to have a world where these multiple decade journeys are not a thing, and people don't have to go through these crises of, oh my god, I actually do have this thing after all. We should be able to get this diagnosed relatively quickly. Now, I get it if we don't get it diagnosed when we're kids. That's still pretty tricky because we're not fully formed yet. But by the time we're fully formed, this should not take multiple decades to figure out.
Thank you. That was a very good explanation. I appreciate it. Christy, you're a natural storyteller.
Thank you.
Of course. You began talking a little bit about my second question, but I want to give you more space because I know you have more to say. What does a disability-friendly future look like for you?
A disability-friendly future looks like very easy accessibility in the diagnostic process, in getting everyday needs met. A disabled future makes a question of, hey, can I get this accommodation, have a response like, okay, no problem, where it's as easy to get accessibility as it is to get a latte. It should not have to be war to get accommodations. It should not have to be war just to be believed when you're sick. And there certainly should not be any sort of fiscal warfare from the quote unquote healthcare system that we have right here. We should not have to be afraid for our lives. A truly accessible future means universal healthcare, single payer, where all the money that's being drained out of us for these for-profit systems instead goes back into education, our careers, our personal interests, where we get to self-actualize, where we can be defined by what we want to do, not defined by our disabilities.
I love this picture that you're painting. You're very passionate about it. Christy, how do you think we get there then? How do you think we can make access a more commonly held feature and easily accessible as well? How do we stop that fiscal warfare? What do you think?
Well, as Bernie Sanders once said, Medicaid is the perfect path for a single payer system in the country. And I'm inclined to agree. I've been on Medicaid on and off since I was 11 because of my illnesses and disabilities. When it works beautifully. For the vascular compressions I mentioned earlier, I only had to pay a $15 copay for them. And it was $3 a day for when I was in the hospital. I was in the hospital for 5 days for an open abdominal procedure where they took everything out, rearranged my vascular system, put everything back in, and then glued everything up. Without any health insurance whatsoever, that surgery and 5 days in the hospital would have been over $100,000. Even with for-profit insurance, that would have been tens of thousands of dollars out of pocket. With Medicaid, only $3 a day. I get maybe we'd still have to pay a little something here and there, but $3, that's perfectly reasonable. And in terms of other elements of accessibility, we need to get better genetic testing for multiple illnesses, hands down. They still haven't figured out the gene that causes hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos, or if there even is a singular gene for it. There are investigations into the MTHFR gene, and yes, I'm trying not to be immature about that acronym, especially because that's going to get beeped if I say it on the air. But then there's also the TNXB gene. There are so many different genes that haven't been investigated to their fullest potential. Everything with hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos, it's a diagnosis of exclusion. I was about to say exclusivity, but that's a bit of a Freudian slip right there, considering how exclusive doctors try and make Ehlers-Danlos in the first place. We need to be able to understand how it is we're made so we can take the proper medications, get the proper treatment. And alongside all of that, we need advances in the way care is done so that medical interventions, they're not as scary or intense. We can do things like auto transplants or endometriosis excision laparoscopically. And that means shorter healing periods, less trauma on the body, less trauma on the mind. Oh, another thing for an accessible future, affordable therapy. That goes without saying. We're already traumatized enough by ableism. Do we have to be further traumatized by not having mental health support along the way? I could go on for hours about what makes an accessible future. There are so many pieces, heck, even public transportation. I just thought of that one. And for all people complain about, well, if you do this, you're going to put so many people out of jobs. No, there are so many jobs to be had and to be made with an accessible future. You're just not being creative enough to think of that.
Thank you, Christy. I really love that. I think that you've painted a really good blueprint, I guess, for how we can make our future disability friendly.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I'm just going off of lived experience here. I mean, there is no better educator on this subject than a disabled individual with the lived experience. Obviously, there are going to be people with greater knowledge of the theoretical end than I do. I'm not going to claim to sit here and say I have a legal degree or I have a civic engagement or poli-sci degree when I don't. At the end of the day, I'm a writer. I'm a writer with a lot of lived experience, though. And the lived experience, it is completely undervalued when building policy and blueprints, even though it's the lived experience that makes these blueprints work.
Absolutely. I love what you say about building an inclusive future and how accessing healthcare should not be as traumatic as it is. As we close our time together, I want to give you a chance that you and I, as disabled people, rarely get. And that's a chance to brag about yourself, talk about something cool you've done recently, or maybe something you got in the works, maybe. If you have a website or something, where can people find you? But this is just a blank space for you to be your own cheerleader. Let's hear it.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, Seasons of Sisterhood got published at the end of last year. It is available through Spears Books and Amazon.com. You can pick it up today. And I am starting a master's in Italian at Middlebury this summer. I did their program last summer, came out with really high marks, was the MC of the talent show, did an original song translation, was the leading a-hole princess in the theater production. And what else is there to brag about? Well, I got to visit a friend of mine in Sweden last fall. You met them, actually. For everybody watching, the friend of mine in question is Johan Vita. They are a huge mental health advocate. Check out their video as soon as you're done checking out this one. And in September, I'm going to be going up to Toronto for an Ehlers-Danlos convention.
That's awesome.
Thank you. There's a lot.
Have you been to Toronto before?
Say it again?
Have you been to Toronto before?
Not Toronto. I've been to Vancouver.
Okay. Let me know how it is.
Will do. Absolutely. And I'll send you every single note I get from the Ehlers-Danlos convention.
Please. Christy, thank you so much. I can put any kind of links you want in our video description. Absolutely.
I will send them to you shortly after this. Got to get you those links to those books.
Thank you. All right, folks. Tune in next time. Remember, this is our disabled future, and we're building it one day at a time together. Wherever you go and whatever you do, I'm rooting for you, and I can't wait to see what you do next. Bye.